Welcome back to lesson 6. In 1975, I went to the midnight New Year's Eve poetry reading at the St. Mark's Church. And Yoko Ono came out and she opened her hand and said, "This is not a little boat. This is a boat in the distance," and closed her hand and walked away. Today, we're going to discuss two ways of making space, of drawing space. One is a drawn space, one is what I call a felt space. So a drawn space is really based on linear ideas, but everything goes back to language. If I put that there, we could understand that that's a boat. But as Yoko Ono said, we don't know yet if it's just a toy boat or a boat in the distance. So in linear perspective, and in this drawn space, if we start with a horizon line, we still don't know where this is. This is flat, this is flat. It could be on a table, we don't know yet. In linear perspective, you make a vanishing point on the horizon and everything will be going in radiuses to that point. So if you were to actually have these rays coming out into this vanishing point, this we all know, we can all see in our heads the railroad track idea. So if I took this and I actually used my vertical and horizontal lines and I found one of these points here, right? I can see these, okay? These are coming out of this. Then maybe I put someone watching the boat. All of a sudden, we have a sense, we know this is a building, we know this is a boat. Things are starting logically to understand in space. And through linear lines, we can start to see our eye being led to places. Even though this is flat, you could all of a sudden have a line turn on the boat. What if we were actually to follow these lines and to put in a pier, right? And as you move away from the horizon, things are going to get further apart. So the planks are going to be like this. All of a sudden we can say this is the pier going into the water. And this gives us a relationship where then, say, a person could stand. There's Galileo again, right? We understand both through linear and also through representation what is happening here. Now, if we were to move over to a felt space, and both of these come out of around the 1400s, so basically we know this is European Renaissance. I look to Chinese ink painting, someone like Shan Zhao, and also in the 1400s, this idea of felt space. If we did the same thing, if we were to say, okay, there's our boat. Now, in both cases, but more so in the felt idea, the pressure of your hand, the size of the mark, also the absence of how you leave things out becomes really, really vital. So in a nonlinear drawing, if this is the boat, in the relationship, this could become the building. Right? All of a sudden, you're going to start to see this can push back. If I was actually to lighten that, that's going to push back even further into distance. So touch is so important. If I was to actually say, here's the figure. Here's the same thing, right? Here's a bit of that. Here's some of the waves. If this actually was to break the page, look what all of a sudden it really jumps back. So, look at the difference. This is much more, in a sense, logical. They're both logical. This is logical in a intellectual way of a system. This is logical in the way that we feel and we start to understand. The Impressionists really came out of this. So what I want you to do is to find yourself in a situation where there's space in front of you. Draw the same thing both ways. One, using a idea of linear. This is where you're going to use your measurements. You can start to find these angles by measuring it off of something else to see where this corner is compared to this, where this part of the window is compared to this. That will actually tell you when you bring it over to here what that angle is. Because if you're in a small room and you make a forced perspective, it's going to become very cartoony fast. So again, with this one, remember that your tool is an extension of your head, your eyes, and your heart, okay? Make a lot of drawings. Go slow. Feel it out. Don't use an eraser. Horizontal, vertical lines to start. Make some of those. What we're going to do in the next class is learn how to start drawing objects to put into these spaces. Okay, so stay well, and I'll see you in a few days.